Well, I will call the meeting to order. Let's start with roll call. Allie Taylor, Zach, Tammy, Johnny.
Present.
Wendell Huggins, Dustin Seaton.
Here.
Candace Baldwin.
Here.
Aubrey Shepard.
Here.
And I'm Alex Baldwin. Okay. Make a motion to approve the meeting agenda talking about the service provider contract for the Fayetteville Public Access Television. So move. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Well, you want to start, Doug, or Dan?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start,
Okay.
and I'll keep it short. I just want to give you a little bit of background. In terms of the public access service provider, 6 years ago, I won't get into it too much, but public access, as it's known down there, was in a bit of disarray, and then Community Access Television, CAT, was brought on as a service provider and then was rebranded Your Media. And over the course of the past 5 years, they've kind of righted that ship, and particularly in the past 3 years, we've seen, as you kind of witnessed in our previous board meetings, participation, numbers, everything have just gone up and up and up, and Your Media has done a great job in turning it around and really making that a service for the city to be utilized. Before they came aboard and changed its course, it was very much a kind of cliquish, exclusive club down there, and it drew headlines for all the wrong reasons. Now we are here to kind of discuss and approve a new contract. It's for a period. This will be a new 5-year period, and the contract is renewable on a per-year basis. The previous 4 years, Your Media has been operating under a contract for $105,000 per year. Without any change, so it's been frozen at that rate. The new RFP that we issued for the public access service provider, there were no changes in terms of what we were asking, as the city was asking out of its service provider. And we received one bid from Your Media, and because we received one bid, we then voted or agreed to enter into negotiations with Your Media. Your Media's bid proposal was higher than the previous 4 years, $105,000. And during the contract negotiations, the case was made that in terms of public access to achieve the next level of what it can do in providing services and helping residents of the city and just basically being a resource for the city, it was time to kind of up the amount that we pay Your Media to allow them to do more of this. And most of it resides, in fact pretty much all of it resides in terms of staffing. Right now, staffing for Your Media and public access, they're doing as much as they can with their staff allotment. And I think for them to achieve more from what I envision for public access and what Dan also envisions for it, it's time to kind of give them more to achieve it. I will say that the new contract calls for about it calls for exactly $48,570 more. And that sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but in terms of having been frozen for 4 years at $105,000 at the staffing levels that they have, being able to up their staffing levels will allow them to retain their great staff that they have. It increases the staff that they have in terms of taking some part-time to full-time, which they need. That's been a bit of a handicap for them. And the contract also includes a built-in 3% cost of living on the fees that we pay them for salaries only. For the other expenditures, it doesn't apply to that. So it's just for salaries only. And this basically mimics the city's what the city does for its employees and benefits and things like that. And we want to get them on par with the city and be able to retain good talent, because the specialized things that they do at the station in terms of education and technological things, it would be very hard to replace somebody if they lost them. Particularly we're in a very small pool in Northwest Arkansas, and to replace them, you need the money to replace them. First of all, you'd have to be able to find somebody comparable, and then you'd have to pay them, and that would be very difficult in this region. So I think this is this contract that the Director of Communications, Susan Norton, and I negotiated with Your Media, I think it will achieve the majority, if not all, of the things that we have in mind for public access. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dan, who would like to kind of present where he and Your Media are coming from in asking for this increase and what they'll be able to do with it. So if you want to take it away.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here this evening. As Doug mentioned, as part of our proposal for the next 5 years, we have requested an increase in funding to sustain and further grow the operation. We have seen, as you guys have heard me report monthly, we have seen a significant increase in participations and participants and in equipment usage. We have seen significant increases in the last 3 years, and at the same time, we're essentially redefining the staffing structure to optimize what we were going to be able to do with the fixed amount of money that we were given to do it with. So we have, I would say, created that staffing structure to meet the requirements in the contract and the things that were issued in the RFP. When the city requested a proposal, they laid out exactly what services they wanted provided, and to provide those services, we then have defined staff roles. And I would say that now, at the point of this entire increase and of this presentation, is that we are now asking to offer the staff at Fayetteville Public Access Television comparable compensation packages to what city staff in comparable positions are making, because currently that is not the case. Currently, the whole staff is way under market value and under what comparable city staff make. So,
Does that include benefits? Sorry.
it would include benefits. What we are requesting would include health care, at least, benefits for the full-time employees.
Thanks.
So as we've seen in previous meetings, we've seen an increase in trainings offered. That's Your Media working hard to offer more bang for the city's buck when it comes to us meeting the needs and finding the needs of the users. So over the last 3 years in particular, we have increased the number of trainings that we've been offering at the television center. As a result, we've seen the participations increase, and since we just gave our third quarter report, we went ahead and projected out for these. You're going to see, based on third quarter numbers, we applied those to the fourth quarter to project what this year would look like when it's said and done. So we are on track to have a really landmark year when it comes to participations, and that's, you know, a participant can take multiple participations. So when we look at participations as we have in the 3-year view, we see that the dark line is the current line, is this year. We have had increased activity across the board in 2015. In the third quarter, we had a slight dip. I can tell you that I would say is somewhat related to the fact that we had such a surge in June. As a result, as we're following up with people, as we're working with them on helping get their goals accomplished, that then pulls our attention away from, we have to decide. We essentially have to do personnel triage with what we can focus on when it comes to productions and outreach and technical support and supporting people as they do their productions. And we definitely always feel like the customer comes first. So when we have people who are engaging with the operation, we do everything we can to facilitate their needs and their growth. And as a result, you can see our outreach for class participations has dwindled a bit, and we've seen the repercussions of that in the numbers. So that's us kind of hitting our limit when it comes to what we're able to do and who we're able to serve. So when it comes to participants, The number of people who are actually coming for training, that has also been on a consecutive 3-year growth pattern, and we anticipate that continuing. When we talk about equipment utilization, here we're looking at the last 12 months, and we see that we've had a significant increase in field production equipment use particularly, which is very exciting, and we believe that we will continue to see increases as we are able to accommodate it. When you look at the 3-year perspective of equipment utilization, we once again in 2015 are looking at significantly greater equipment use, mainly because of that surge of interest in field production cameras. But I can also tell you that when it comes to every piece of equipment being available as much as it possibly can be, we gauge our capacity, and we're currently operating at about 30% of our equipment capacity. So that means we still have room for growth. We have room for people to come in. The field camera checkouts are at a higher capacity, obviously, but then the studio is currently at a lower capacity. So as we run into problems like this, we can start routing people. You know what, a field camera is not available, but we can check you out the studio, and you can go shoot your content there. So we can try to spread the weight of the equipment demand over the equipment that we have. But I would say that there has definitely been more interest in field production and editing than there has been in studio production in the past. I would also like to go ahead and estimate that with the upgrades that are proposed to the television studio in the next year, I believe we are going to see a significant increase in studio activity. The students that are coming out of high schools and colleges are used to working with a level of equipment. Currently, the television center is not at that level. We're still working in standard definition. We can't do the cool digital tricks that go along with high definition. That's about to change, and when it does, I believe that we will see a surge of the people who are trained in that equipment. When they see that there is a current applicable resource in the television center, I believe we'll see an increase in studio use. And we're very excited to have that opportunity and to embrace that new opportunity. When it comes to feedback and complaints about the operation, as it stands, it has been more than 3 years since we've had a formal complaint, and I think this is notable because of what Doug mentioned. Historically, this operation was riddled with formal complaints that caused problems for everyone, and we have managed to increase the number of people who are engaging with the operation. We've increased the number of people who are watching, and we've increased the number of shows that are being produced, while creating an ethos that has made it so that we have not had the same problems that they had with complaints in the past. So, and then we have our test scores have remained in the high 90s for the last 3 years. We have survey opportunities for the students, and those have all remained in the 4 and above category, and 1 being low and 5 being high. So overall, I would say the feedback on the operation has been very positive. Ultimately, I believe that Fayetteville residents have 2 ways that they can engage with this operation. One is that every Fayetteville resident has the opportunity to come take advantage of the educational resources that are at public access, and that is an amazing opportunity. Otherwise, the equipment and the classes could very easily be cost prohibitive for people, and our residents have the opportunity to come explore the field of video production at no out-of-pocket cost. So having the opportunity to engage with the educational programming, and then secondly, having the opportunity to watch the original programming that is produced. And that is something that for people who do not have an interest in producing video, they still have an opportunity to benefit from this operation because they're able to watch community events and art-related and culture-related programming. They're able to see what's going on in the community simply by turning on their television or by tuning in online. So we feel like that's 2 ways that any Fayetteville resident is able to engage with this operation and take advantage of these resources. The new programming is the thing that we're most excited about. When we're creating original programming that is locally focused, we feel like we're really fulfilling the role that we can. So as you can see, the new programming produced since 2013 has been on a significant increase. And as a result, the new programming telecast, the amount of times that we are able to play local programs has increased as well. So the focus of the channel has shifted to be definitely focused on the locally produced programs. And that's what we want to encourage and foster, is more locally focused original programming. So with those things in perspective, it's good to understand that essentially the service provider provides staff services. Our budget is 90% staff. It's 10% ancillary things that we handle for the city that can be sticky, like our live stream contract. When you see it mentions in the budget, so all of you have been provided with a current budget and then a proposed budget. And in that current budget, we mentioned software expense. For our live stream channel, we engage with live stream and have that contract, that annual contract with them. We have a Google Drive, a professional Google Drive, so we can share information with people and share videos with people. Those kind of subscription services are something that the city cannot engage with the organization, so we handle that for them. But that is a very small percentage. Really, the majority of the money goes to staffing services.
I have a question there.
Yes.
The wording there from 15 to 16 is software expense, and then it says software subscription. Is it the same thing?
It is.
Okay.
It is
All
the
right.
same thing. Thank you for clarifying that. So ultimately, the service provider, we as the staff, by function, essentially work like city staff. We work in a city facility, we utilize and are responsible for city resources, we represent the city in our operation, so we are by function working as city staff, but then also have the very important element of being a third-party nonprofit organization that is removed, and therefore we are able to be accountable to the city to make sure we're handling the stewardship of the resources well, and we are able to provide a buffer layer for the residents so that they're not perceiving government oversight on their free speech. If someone comes in and wants to complain about the city government, they're not looking at a city employee on the other side of the camera. It is a third party that is going to guarantee that their content is going to remain the way it was, and so we're able to offer that sense of First Amendment rights to the users. So, to fulfill the requirements issued in the RFP, we have initially created a course structure of a full-time operational manager, a full-time technical director, a currently part-time educational director, which is one of our challenges, and then a part-time social media coordinator. Those roles are pretty self-descriptive. The social media coordinator is a very important person because there are several times over the course of the week that the entire staff, full and part-time, are working on projects. All three of us will be in providing technical support on a studio production or in a studio lab. Someone's teaching a class, someone's working on programming, someone's interacting. We've got multiple things happening at once. So we feel like in those moments, especially when our educational director is teaching classes and when our technical director is facilitating some sort of studio production, we want someone at the front desk to greet people, answer their questions, and handle those sorts of things. So that person sits there and receives people for us. While they're sitting there, they also serve as our social media coordinator, working with our Facebook page, specifically to reach out to organizations that could be involved with public access, let them know about the resources that are available, and to maintain our presence on social media.
How many hours a week does that person work?
10. Currently 8, and I'm proposing an increase to 10 hours a week.
What do we pay them?
$10 an hour,
And it's mostly in the evenings.
and it is in the evenings.
Yes.
Would part-time salary qualify for benefits?
No, there's not.
So the education director would increase to a full-time position with benefits.
That is what
The
I'm...
social media coordinator still
Would
part-time
Stay part-time, yep,
without benefits.
that's correct. So, with the fixed budget, we've had to recruit employees at rates significantly less than industry comparable positions or even comparable city positions. And then with the current fixed budget, the service provider whoever they were, would be unable to recruit and retain qualified individuals for these roles in the future. And I can speak from experience that we had a great director of education who I brought in at the part-time position. He was very qualified, he really enjoyed the work, but then he got offered another position in Little Rock that met his qualifications at a significantly larger, I just couldn't even compete. And so I was not able to retain someone that I felt like I was making progress with because of the structure as it was. And then also I can say the technical director is way under industry standards, such that if I had to replace that person, I would not be able to have a qualified candidate to replace them. So that's what I'm bringing to the table here, is those two positions in particular need to be full-time and need to be comparable to city staff positions. So the current budget that you guys have, the first sheet of the two budgets, just want to point that this is what we're currently working with, which does provide us the hindrances of non-competitive salaries, no staff development in the budget, and in a technical field that is particularly challenging because we're supposed to stay on the cutting edge of what's coming out and what's happening. So, and for 4 years, we've been able to get by with online resources and minimal things, but to be able to offer true professional development for our staff members would only improve the service that we offer the residents.
So would that be an annual $1,000?
Yes.
What's the outreach budget? What does that actually entail?
So currently, the revenue that we use for outreach is the revenue that we bring in through contract productions. Fayetteville Public Access Television offers contract productions in the television center. If someone does not want to make their own video, we can produce their video for them at the television center for a relatively low fee to what happens on the outside. So our base price is $50 an hour. So, and then as we add staff members, we increase that a little bit, but ultimately it's a much lower rate than you would find on the outside, as it were. So the revenue that we generate from that, we then put in a trust account that we manage for the city, and then that money is allocated for outreach. But that fund is variable. Sometimes we have lots of contract productions. There have been historical years where we have not had many contract productions. So as a result, to guarantee that we at least have something that we know we can work with, I am proposing that we have a minimum of $1,000 in the budget as a base outreach that we would then look at spending with, I would say the thing that we lack the most at the moment is physical presence. I would like to see more of a physical presence. I just this week priced the size of buses, when looking at things that provide some sort of signage, some sort of, when people are just strolling through their day, I want them to be able to see that, hey, there's Fayetteville Public Access Television. I should find out more about that. So we have historically tried things like on water bills. We paid one, I think back in 2013, 2012, we had a pamphlet included with water bills, and tried that and really saw no tangible results from that. We have historically purchased ads with the Fayetteville flyer ads that go on the side, and we did see more traction with online advertising. So those sorts of relationships would be the kind of relationships that we would want to pursue. And then with that trust fund money, we would then be purchasing our pens and koozies and t-shirts and physical items that we would pass out for that sort of stuff as well. So this would be the base, and then we would be supplementing that with revenue that we bring in. And we have historically have been bringing in around $2,000 a year, but really, ultimately, that's just not even a scratch on the surface. I was sad to find out that the buses are very expensive. And
could those funds roll over to the next year?
Probably not. The trust fund can.
Yes.
But the budgeted funds probably could not. So we would want to find ways to
plug that in,
to plug those in and provide that foundation.
So you got 2,000 roughly in the fund from this year, or was that last year?
This year, we have generated more than $2,000
Okay.
in contract production.
And then you're asking for another 1,000, so
That's
you'd be
correct.
looking around 3,000.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
It's gonna be tough to do anything on a massive scale like you're wanting to do for $3,000 a year. You gotta get really, really creative.
It's true.
With it.
But every little bit helps.
Sure.
This increase would definitely give us more of a platform to work from than we have currently.
Yeah, sure.
So previous attempts with the, I guess, the mailer with the water bill, that came out of the $2,000 trust fund account?
That's correct. Yeah, we've been paying for our own advertising for the last 4 years.
Okay, so, let me see if I understand this. I did some back of the napkin math here. I've got a change of, a year-over-year change of about $3,000 on staff, staff increases. Is that correct? That's at 3%. Is it year-over-year, or is it overall for the 4 years total?
So it would be a year-to-year increase. So what we're proposing for this year is the 153 number.
Right.
And then next year, the
Automatic.
salary number would automatically be 3% more.
Okay.
It's not 3% total, it's just 3%
Right.
of the salary.
Just
3%
3%
of the salary. So, right, so basically for the next, this year and the next 4 years, the base number is 153,570. It's just next year, there's that little bit of a 3% bump
Built in, yeah.
based on the salary only, and then the next year, the 3% cost of living, and so on. But all these other numbers stay the same for the period of 5 years.
Even insurance?
You should, yeah.
Should I say that again?
Even insurance?
Yes. I mean, no, I'm sorry, the insurance stays fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
The insurance packages that we're offering the full-time people are up to $4,000 a year towards their health insurance. I know that for myself and for my director of education who have families, then we pay on top of that, but that's what's allocated for the individual.
See.
So that's where that $12,000 number comes from. It's three people at $4,000 a year.
All right.
Excuse me, some people, particularly in the public, maybe on city council, would want to ask, see, what are we comparing, for instance, the two technical people on the staff?
That's a great question.
What jobs in our city, what are the commercial TV stations? Do you have any of that?
That would not, commercial television stations would not be a comp that would be applicable. Here, from the city website,
Okay.
I've got underneath, video production technician, salaries are 22 to 34 monthly is the range that they recruit at. And so what I'm proposing is right in the middle of that for our people, for my technical director and for my educational director. It would be in the middle of that. And then a comparable position to my position would be something along the lines of the office manager of the water and sewer. They represent and manage an operation that is interestingly enough, wastewater treatment is also something that contracts with an outside company to manage that for them. So it's a somewhat comparable position, and that also, what I'm proposing for my position would also be in the middle, the lower middle of that number. So that's from our website, from the City of Fayetteville website, those are comparable positions. And then these also include full city benefits, and that are even better than the benefits that we would be offering, because we're not addressing things like retirement and that sort of thing, but we are at least covering health care. Does that answer your question?
And with the added increase in salary expenses, do you feel comfortable in the future trying to retain the individual that left for Little Rock or someone in that position?
Yes.
You feel you have more manageable funds for
Yes.
being competitive?
Having that position be part-time was very difficult, because I was always, split between. I would have to be okay with them working on other things and having to accommodate another work schedule. But more importantly, someone who's working in a part-time position is always looking for that full-time opportunity. So I felt like they were just, biding their time until they can find something that was full-time. So being able to, especially with the Director of Education being the person who interfaces with the students, having a consistent person there who can develop those relationships and build those relationships and be consistent, I feel like it's very valuable and would help us with our growth. We saw a dip when we lost YK. Things kind of, and then I have to retrain a director of education, which takes a minute. And then that person has to develop new relationships with old users, and we have to get everybody comfortable with that. So being able to avoid that process will definitely help our operation.
What do you think are some questions or some reasons why the council may not approve your request?
Well, when it comes to frequently asked questions about the public access operation, the first thing that I would say, having done this now for 3 years, one of the first challenges we run into is the perception of how public access is funded. People don't really know how public access is funded. They know that it's tax dollars. And so that's a very broad statement, the term tax dollars. So what I would very much encourage the city to consider is really attaching the franchise fees that they collect from the cable providers to this operation. That is the model in other public access channels across the nation. When you look up public access channels, they'll say, we are allocated X amount of funds from the service provider, from the franchise fees. We are allocated this amount, and that's how we run our public access channel. So the city of Fayetteville collects over $1 million a year in franchise fees from Cox and AT&T. And what we are proposing with our increase represents roughly 15% of that revenue.
Do we know what they do with that additional revenue?
So that revenue goes into the general fund with sales tax. It all gets lumped together.
Stir it up and kind of, you lose perspective.
Gotcha.
So, and then when you say it's tax dollars, people tend to feel like you're talking about property tax. Like you're literally taking dollars out of my pocket for this. Now, at the increased rate, if you divide that across the number of Fayetteville residents, it comes to about $2 a resident per year. So even if we were taking your tax dollars, if you consider the fact that you can come take classes and check out equipment and then have this opportunity to be involved with this thing for the price of $2 a year, it does seem, like a very low amount. So, but once again, the perception, it's very important that I think that the community perceive that this is supported by franchise fees that they're already paying. Your franchise fees on your Cox cable bill is a pass-through. You have it as a line item on your bill. So it's not like we're actually getting this money from Cox. Cox is already charging this money to the residents. And now we're taking a bit of that money and giving them an opportunity to engage with that resource. So, and then the other thing that often comes up is, well, why don't you seek outside funding for the operation? Why don't you try to find grants or philanthropy or something along those lines? And the problem is, as I mentioned before, since 90% of our operation is staffing services, if we do find a grant to support the operation 1 year, that grant may not be available in a subsequent year, and that would put the whole operation at risk. So I feel like this is something that if the city wants to be able to provide and sustain this operation, it needs to be safe in its funding.
Question.
Yes.
That Cox and AT&T funding, that line item you mentioned, is that attached only to television, or does it also apply to those who subscribe to internet only?
You'll find it in your bill, your line item, little franchise fee ends up being like so many cents.
But it does apply to both?
It does.
Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. All right. So I figure this to be a change in the overall budget that I got from the city, from the entire city budget, of about 0.03%. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I see a annual budget and work program, the total budget being about $145 million. Well, exactly $145,205,000. So if that's correct, then those are my numbers.
It is a very,
Put
very...
it like that, put it like that.
I thought I should add that little bit of perspective.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective.
How did, I suppose you said that you arrived to the 3% cost of living was equivalent to that of the city, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I expected to come and see the numbers and them to be very liberal. I'm finding them to be the opposite.
Oh, thank you.
So much to where I'm wondering if more could be done with more in the future. Not at present. I don't think it's a fresh idea, but I wonder what provisions could be made in the future for such things.
Well, I'll tell you this contract is renewable on a per year basis, meaning
Okay.
it can be renegotiated each year, depending on how things go.
Okay.
So with this increase, we would be able to then accomplish new things, and then at the end of the year, reassess
Mhm.
and figure out, is there more that we could be doing?
How often do y'all explore other on your own revenue generating activities? You mentioned the contracts we do that can generate some revenue that go into the trust fund and all that.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that do we do on an annual basis where we try and go and raise, generate our own revenue at your media?
So your media as the service provider for public access, we are constantly messaging to everyone that we interact with that if they are not able to do the work themselves, that we are able to do that work for them. But I feel like so on the top sheet, will you pass me?
Bill?
Yes, thank you. If you notice, it says reasons to invest in FPTV, and the second bullet point down is something that I really want to emphasize. FPTV serves as a resource for all city departments and initiatives to raise awareness and inform the community about services and events. FPTV can be utilized for free by all city staff and programs, but they can also contract us to produce their video for them, which adds value to city program outreach and advertising dollars. So if you've got the Humane Society and they've got a $2,000 a year outreach budget, if they're going to try to contract someone to produce their video for them, that's going to cost them a lot of money. Instead, they can come to public access. As a contract production, we can produce that for them at a fraction of the cost of what it would be on the outside, which then provides us that contract revenue, but then also gives them more bang for their buck. They have more revenue to work with because we have added value to that city revenue. So all city departments have the opportunity to humanize and message and let people know about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I feel like that as a resource is very valuable to the city. In a way, we're almost like an internal video department for the city. The government channel is stressed. They are overburdened already with the amount of work that they're able to do. And this, in a way, allows us to help relieve a little bit of that pressure by giving city organizations that would call the government channel and say, hey, we would like to contract you like the Recycle Center does. We want to hire you to come produce our stuff. I mean, if he does not have the hours to do it, they can contact us. We can help them produce their stuff. So I just really feel like that adds value to the whole package.
Well, I think you guys deserve it. I want you to get it, I'm all for paying people what they're worth, and it is very, very hard to recruit good quality people when you don't pay what the market, or they can go somewhere else and get it. I'm just thinking from their standpoint, as an increase, the percentage increase, it's only 0.000 whatever, 3% in the overall city budget, but from what your budget was 4 years ago, it's a pretty significant increase, so I want us to go in there with as much ammo as we can, and the reason I asked that question is I was thinking, what if we could go in and say, yes, we want this, and we're asking this, here's the reason why, and we want this number, but on the backside, we're going to do this to help raise our own, help increase our own revenues,
Right.
Something that's sustainable that we can we can do as well.
Once again, I mean, that revenue that we can generate, we can definitely contribute to the operation as far as like outreach.
Yeah.
But when it comes to staffing, you know, anything that we are generating, you know, to then support staffing can then be compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, you know, it is my goal that staffing structure be able to stay solid, and then anything that we're able to do, we are very interested in pursuing outside funds when it comes to production initiatives. If we can find funds that would support producing content about a certain topic, something along those lines, we're happy to look for revenue like that, that would then supplement the outreach budget. And ultimately, outreach is our greatest, I would say, challenge, and our greatest goal is to try to get as many people aware of the resources as possible. When I'm out doing outreach to the community, the biggest thing I hear is, why didn't I know this was here? You know, I didn't know that this was here. How have I not heard about this before? So the more that we can get more people hearing about it and on top of the resources, I think the more everyone's going to benefit.
What other discussion do you want to have before we make a motion on this?
Legal's already looked over the contract.
Legal drew it up. They did. And in fact, this contract and the language in this contract is by and large the same as 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012. Just the only differences are a little bit of change in the number that we're going to be paying per month, and the built-in 3% cost of living guarantee that's only in there just to make sure it carries over from contract to contract as it's renewed. So
So do you make a motion, or?
Mr. Arbor, anything else you want to add?
I'll move we pass it.
And it is the city staff's recommendation to approve this contract. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, I meant to ask that, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't know if there were reservations.
No. Yeah, this is, we negotiated this, and we approved this, and we think
Second
this will
motion.
get your media and public access to where they want to go.
Okay. So, Mr. Aubrey made the motion. Is that enough, or do we need to fill in with all the wording on the?
No, you can make a motion to approve it.
Okay, cool. See motion.
Seconded.
Second it. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
So moving forward, is it duly noted then unanimous decision by the Telecommunications Board to?
It is, and I will, this allows me to take this, when we take this to City Council, I mean, that's going to be one of the first questions they ask. They ask is, what did the Telecommunications Board think of it?
So is it going to be?
Rigorous questioning.
Yeah.
Are you going to be the one presenting it to the council, or is it?
I am. Dan will be there to be able to answer questions.
Okay.
And when will we find out if it's approved?
We will find out, and this is for the November 17th?
Yes.
Is it November
So
17th?
The 10th is the consent, it would be the agenda session.
Okay.
So November 10th is the agenda session where we would present this to the city council to have discussion in the agenda session, hopefully. And then on the 17th.
16th. No, the 17th, you're right.
17th is the actual city council meeting, where we're hoping that this will be on the consent agenda because of the agenda meeting on the 10th.
Okay.
The reason why I called the special meeting in order to get this approved is I have an October 30th deadline
Okay.
to get this onto the agenda.
Mhm.
And so that's why I wanted to make sure that, you know, you guys had a say in this before it went up.
Yeah. Along with that, before I came, I was watching the agenda session for the meeting. It's coming to city council held upstairs.
Mhm.
All of it. But I noted it wasn't there. I was afraid you had to have it in there today.
No. This Friday is the deadline, and then it goes on it's for the November 6th agenda session, and then the 17th is the city council.
So it's always that far ahead if possible. Tonight, unless some council member brings in something new and walks it on.
Right. Yeah, every 2 weeks, unless the month has 5 weeks in it, and then they skip a week. So,
Anything else for the greater good?
Thank you all for your support.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. You guys did a great job, man. I hope
Yeah,
you get it.
great wording.
Yeah. Cool. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Everybody have a good night.
All right, very good. Thank you for coming on Tuesday to do this.